Welcome to a World of Warship Blitz video, and in today's video we are going to be looking at the Tier 8, yep, the Amalfi, the Tier 8 Italian heavy cruiser by its guns, I suspect, because the 6 and the 7 both had 8-inch guns. So let us have a stats review, and I am feeling lucky, so you'll get a battle and hopefully it won't be a shocker. Okay, so let us go through the survivability and the maneuverability. So survivability is 27,500 hit points as opposed to 26,000 for the Tier 7, the Zara. 10% citadel protection, 12.5% flooding and fire resistance, 9% damage reduction, 12% torpedo damage reduction, so better all round. I think the damage reduction, actually fairly similar. I think that flooding resistance is 2.5% better. 36 knots, very fast. I think the Zara was 31 and the Trento was 34. 19 seconds to full speed, good luck. 7.7 seconds, so even better traverse speed. So the Trento was 7.2, the Zara 7.5, and this is 7.7, which is nice. Turn time is slightly better than the Zara at 11.23 seconds. Of course, that is probably the historical camo speaking. And when I do this, to make it comparable with the other ships, we'll probably find that it all falls into line. That didn't make any sense at all. Okay, anyway, I'll run with it. 10.8 seconds, right. Does the historical camo make the turn time worse? Okay. Whatever, let's just do a comparison. 27,500 hit points. Charles Martel, right, here we go. So this is the first time, Tier 6 or 7, the Italian cruisers topped it out on the hit points. The Charles Martel is fully upgraded, so it's not a fair comparison. 33 knots as opposed to 36. Obviously its turn time for this is worse because this already has some historical camo and it has the steering gear modification. So I have outfitted the Charles Martel because I didn't have it on my main account at that time. So it's a bit of an unfair comparison. Now the Charles Martel probably starts out with less hit points. Maybe starts out with less hit points because looking at those damage, citadel protection and damage reduction, the Amalfi has it over the Charles Martel. The Chapayev, which is also fully upgraded, 31,000 rather than the 27,500. Much like the lower tier cruisers, it actually has less in the way of protection, 7.5, 10, 6 and 10.5, as opposed to the 10, 12.5, 9 and 12. So the Amalfi has pretty good protection. The Chapayev is 3 knots shy of the Amalfi, and the Amalfi is pretty fast. It's pretty slow to get to full speed, much like the Amalfi, the Chapayev is. 5.4 degrees per second as opposed to 7.4, so that's 2 degrees per second slower in the turn. 9 seconds turn time as opposed to the 10.8 or whatever it was with the Amalfi. The Chapayev is just not as agile. It is a long-range ship. Admiral Hipper, fully kitted out. Okay then. So the Admiral Hipper is actually tougher. It's got better citadel protection. It's got better flooding and fire. It's got the same flooding and fire resistance. I think slightly better damage reduction and the same torpedo damage reduction. It's a lot slower, 32 rather than 36. Slow to get there, and you can see that even fully kitted out for the turn, it's still slower in the turn at 6.86 rather than 7 point, I forget, that's really scary, isn't it? 7.4. The Admiral Hipper also has a better turn time. Edinburgh, fully upgraded. So its hit points are obviously greater. I think I'm getting a theme here, aren't I? The Takao, that doesn't fully upgraded. And the Cleveland or the Wichita, to be fair, those aren't really great comparisons, so I suspect that we're going to have to do a little bit of, please forgive me for this will slow the video down some. Right, let's do like for like comparisons. Right, what's its hit points? 32,450. So it has more hit points than the Charles Martel, and it has better protection stats. So only slightly more, so it's not the massive increase. The Trento has a lot more, and the Zara has quite a bit more. I think 1,100 better than its closest competitor. This, for the Charles Martel, this is only, there's less than 1,000 in it, so it's 800 better than the Charles Martel. For the Chapayev, obviously, its hit points are about 600 better than the Chapayev. So these other ships are starting to catch up with the Amalfi, the Italian cruisers, although its damage protection is significantly better than the Chapayev. Admiral Hipper, which is probably a fairly good base ship. Okay, finally we have a ship that has more hit points than an Italian cruiser. So the Italian cruiser has 32,500-ish, 32,450, 34,450. So this is 2,000 greater hit points. It has better citadel protection, the same flooding and fire resistance, 1.5% better damage reduction, the same torpedo damage reduction. It doesn't get the same speed, and as I was talking about before, its agility in the turn is less, but its turn time is faster. So it gets into the turn a bit faster, but its time in the turn is not as good as the Amalfi. Okay, the Amalfi certainly eats this for dinner for hit points, the Edinburgh, and it has much better citadel protection. It has the same flooding and fire resistance. It has better damage reduction, so it's a tougher ship all round than the Edinburgh, not a surprise because it's a light cruiser. It's faster than the Edinburgh, not a surprise because the Edinburgh is basically pretty much a Theme Leander, Fiji, Edinburgh, they're pretty similar. This is a fast accelerator. It has incredible agility, traverse speed of 8.11 seconds, and it doesn't look as though I've got any kit on it, so that'll even go up. And an 8-second turn time, which is pretty slow for a British cruiser, but still is 4 seconds faster, roughly, or 3 seconds faster than the Amalfi. Where did my comparisons go? Takao. So that's got comparable hit points. It has slightly worse citadel and fire and flooding resistance, 9% damage reduction, way worse torpedo damage reduction, 2 knots slower, still slow to get to full speed, so comparable with the Amalfi roughly. Maximum traverse speed is slower, and the Miyoko was a much slower and more sluggish beast than the Zara, but it has faster, that turn time is faster. So once you get into the turn, you'll be able to haul it around fairly well in the Amalfi, but getting into that turn will be the struggle. Compare it with the Cleveland. Eats Cleveland for dinner on hit points. Has nowhere near the fire and flooding resistance that the Cleveland has. Damage reduction of 9%, I think, is roughly the same. Torpedo damage reduction, relatively comparable. The Cleveland is a lot slower, but doesn't need a lot of speed because you should be escorting battleships. And American cruisers are fairly agile, so a much reduced turn time, 6 seconds versus almost 12 seconds, or 11 seconds, sorry, and 7.2 degrees the same time in the turn. The Wichita, not quite as fast in the turn. Hasn't got any kit on it, of course. Much better turn time, so in aggregate you'll be better in the turn, a lot slower speed, 31 versus 36 knots. Comparable, maybe 500 more hit points. Comparable damage stats apart from flooding and fire resistance, which is significantly improved over the poor Amalfi and everybody else. Right, guns. Finally, now what I've found with the lighter and the smaller the ship, the more agile, the more I appreciate having the guns evenly spread across it, like the Fiji or the Leander. Two guns at two turrets at the front, two turrets at the rear, because you'll often find yourself in a position where you're changing, and at least you can keep half your guns on target as you're doing that. The larger and less agile the ship, the more I favour two at the front, one at the rear, or two at the rear, one at the front. I don't really mind, because you'll find that you spend less time doing those nasty switches, and what it means is you can tank in if necessary and still keep most of your firepower going. So it's a much more static ship. So this is good, because the other Italian cruisers had 8 guns and 4 turrets. Reload 10 seconds, which is the same as the 10 Tier 7 Zara. Range 11.77 kilometres, which is higher than the 10.8 for the Zara. We will be comparing AP damage, 850. It really has climbed from the Zara, which was 720, the same as the Trento at 720. Same turret traverse speed at 7.5 degrees per second. So those are pretty powerful long-range guns with a low reload. Charles Martel. So this does have a slightly improved, I think I've probably elited it, but essentially probably has the same 11-second reload, or 10-second. It's got a slightly longer reload actually, although this comes with a reload booster. So just be aware that a couple of times per game you can really pump that up. 12.24 kilometre range, so it has longer range. 873 versus 850 damage, with a faster turret traverse speed, helped of course by the fact that it's got that module. I know it's the dispersion module. What have we got here? Oh, okay then, helped by the elite skill. Okay, so the Charles Martel is slightly better in the guns department, apart from the fact that you've got that SAP, which of course does way more damage than the AP. For guns, this is a 6-inch fast reload, way longer range, and I think it's probably helped by the elite skill. A lot less damage, 12 guns of course, faster reload, so it'll all add up, and this has HE with a fire chance, so in the end you'll probably find that the alpha damage out of this will significantly over time, or that sort of damage over time will really rack up. It's slow turrets at 8 degrees per second. Now this Hipper, 10.08 degrees per second, probably because it's got the elite skill. It has much better AP damage at 991 versus 850. 11.7 kilometres range, which is comparable. I think it was 11.8. 11.77, that's right, and that was 12.24. So it has comparable range, 10-second reload. These guns do punch through and damage battleships, so it'll be interesting to see what the Amalfi's guns do, because although it can't fire HE, the fact that it's got 8-inch guns instead of 6-inch guns puts it well ahead of this thing, which is really struggles when you have battleships in the game. So this has 12 guns rather than the 9 guns, 7.5 second reload, which is pretty fast, 2.5 seconds faster, slightly shorter range, 11.56, less damage, a lot less damage, 566 versus the 850. Of course these are 6-inch guns. Turret traverse speed is a lot higher at 10.8. Takeo. Right, now we're into similar 8-inch gun territory. This has 10 rather than the 9. 11-second reload rather than the 10-second reload. Slightly shorter range, 11.43. The Miyoko was the same, slightly shorter range. Slightly less damage. The Miyoko was the same, but made up for it by the fact that this can fire HE and has a pretty good fire chance. 9 degrees per second turret traverse, but that's not too much of an issue because you never want to get too close. Comparing these guns with the Amalfi is going to be interesting, because the Amalfi will have accurate, long, fast, guns with fast flying shells. These shells just take a long time to get there. So the incredibly short range of 10.3 rather than 11.77. That's American cruisers for you. Reload time 6.75 seconds, so well faster. Poor AP damage, but faster firing rate, and yeah, means that it really will make the difference. 12 degrees per second, which is, well, 5.5 degrees per second faster than the Amalfi, so that those guns really do turn. 9 seconds, these are the 8-inch, so this is the American equivalent, much faster reload, 9 seconds versus 10, so 10% benefit. Shorter range, so 11.77 down to 10.46. Comparable AP damage, 838 versus 850, relatively similar. 9 degrees per second, slightly faster turret traverse, so that's probably the closest match, apart from the fact that its range isn't as good. So this thing will be able to punch its weight into battleships, but yeah, at long range it may struggle, and it does want to engage at long range. Two sets of torpedo tubes, one on each side, 4 in the rack. 57-second reload, real jump compared with the Tier 7, which was 42-ish. Of course, the damage is a real jump, 3,800. Of course, I've deleted it, so there you go. Torpedo range, that doesn't change with any of those blueprints. 9.6 kilometre range, that's pretty good. Now, I think the Charles Martel is going to be very similar. A bit slower at 62 knots rather than 61 knots, the Tier 7. 18% flooding chance rather than 15% flooding chance, so slightly better. So essentially, apart from the fact that, wow, it's got longer range even than the Charles Martel. So as these other ships have caught up with it, the Amalfi's torpedo range has really stayed out in front. Let's go compare it. We're not going to compare it with the Chapoyev, which they have 0.4, 0.5, or the 5.4, or the kilometre range of the Admiral Hipper. The Edinburgh, I think, does get a slightly improved torpedo range, 6.5 up to 7.8, or 7.5 up to 7.8, but basically it's still well shy of the 9.6. This is what we are looking for. So the torpedo range on the Takeo, which should be the best torpedo boat, obviously those torpedo damage is incredible. The reload time's a bit slower, 64 seconds versus 57, but that's still a long time to wait. 8.11 kilometre range versus 9.6. These are faster, have a higher chance of flooding. So the Amalfi really does have extremely long range torpedoes. That is very interesting. It is a range ship. Okay, AA time. Interestingly, fully elated, its large calibre AA damage is less than the Zara, which is the Tier 7. That is very interesting. Its small calibre AA is a lot better, and its surface detection is similar at 8.82. So it's not quite as stealthy as the Charles Martel. Not that the Charles Martel is particularly stealthy, although it's the Chapoyev, it's relatively equivalent to the Chapoyev. Admiral Hipper. The Admiral Hipper's got a concealment module that really helps a lot, and historical camo. Obviously, its concealment is nothing compared to the Edinburgh. Well, it's actually not too far wrong from the Edinburgh. Actually, I just take that back. Oh, it's 0.7 of a kilometre. But of course, the Edinburgh can work as a stealth build, and I do on my primary account do that. I've got concealment on that, so that's not a real fair comparison. How are we doing compared to the Cleveland? Similar to the Cleveland and a little bit worse than the Wichita. So that is the Amalfi. Right, I hope all that made sense, because this video has gone all over the place. Let's go and have a look at what skills it gets. Ooh, we're getting more. Okay, so this is interesting. So, like the Tier 6 and the Tier 7, it get 2 fuel smoke, so that is a theme. So, with your captains, you may want to consider Mistweaver. I would probably have a bit of concern there, because Mistweaver does improve the length of time that your fuel smoke is around, or your smoke is around, but it's not a great improvement. And let's say it increases it by 33%, and I'm not sure it's that much. we're still talking a from 15 seconds to 20 seconds, which is still not a lot. So you're losing a whole skill when it's a reduction of damage from fire is the alternative. It may not be worth it. Precise aiming system 1, if you have the Roma, you'll already have your captain with that, so that's all nice and good for your elite ships. And air defense alert 1, if you have the tier 7 Duca Degled, the premium tier 7 cruiser, you'll have air defense alert as well. So, and I think the Duca d'Aosta has the sonar, which means that if you get the battlefield support, you can get, you get the benefit of either improved air defense alert, or on the Duca d'Aosta, which is the tier 6 premium, you'll get the additional sonar, which is always nice. Let's go and look at the upgrades. What are the elite ship bonuses? They are exactly the same as the tier 7 and the tier 6. You can improve the tube torpedo reload and torpedo traverse, or you can do the main battery traverse. And I can tell you, after my last game where the Zara was out turning its guns, I will be making that investment. And the reason I'll be making that investment is because I will be making this investment. So the only way that I can improve my turret traverse is through putting the equipment on, through the elite skill, because I will be using that slot to improve its accuracy. I will make some standard generic choices that seem to be operating throughout. And there we go. We'll load up some historical camo. We'll put a captain on it. Where's my captain? That's the Duca d'Aosta captain. Let's have a look, see what he's got. Yeah, sure. And let's put some commander skills on him. So generally I would probably take that. Torpedo detection might be useful. We have an air defense alert, so I will take that. What do I do here? Maintaining 75% of your hit points, you usually lose it. To be fair, stopping the flooding, stopping the burning earlier is the thing that I would do. Precise aiming system, I'm going to leave this one blank, and the reason I'm going to leave this one blank is that improved heal is actually quite useful, and if the accuracy is really good, like for example with the Russian cruisers, I wouldn't bother with that. I would definitely go for the improved heal, because you have fairly good accuracy to start with. Right, let's take our life into our hands. It is getting a little bit later at night here. It is on the Asian server, so there's a good chance that we will not have to wait a significant period of time for a game to start. So this is the third video I've recorded in a row, which is after the Trento and the Zara. Both of those games were successful, so I expect this one to be, of course, a complete disaster. But let's hope for the best. If I badly screw it up, then well, you'll get to make lots of comments at my expense. What have we got? Got a lot of aircraft carriers. That'll explain why the game's not starting. So we are expecting aircraft in the battle. Aircraft carrier, we have a Shikoku by Masan, and on our side we have an Enterprise, which is always nice. We have the Roma. We have an Amaga, they have a Gascoigne. So far, then we have the Nelson, which is nice, as long as he doesn't get too much broadside. That Akazuki is going to be dangerous, and we have an Akatsuki, which is the tier 7 torpedo boat. So I will be getting the SAP ready, because they will be my targets. And oh dear, we have a domination game, and I'm going to have to carry my weight. Okay. It has fairly good torpedo angles, but that's pretty typical of what looks like European, like French and Italian cruisers. Fairly tight torpedo spread. I'm about to lose my Amagi escort, which is scaring the living crap out of me. because I think that's going to leave me on my own. So what I'm going to try and do is slice through around that island and get back in the match. So I am going it alone. What could go wrong? Okay, I've got a destroyer. It's going to come around the other side of that island. So I've got to keep the speed up. Have we spotted the enemy target? We've spotted the West Virginia. We have the Akazuki. That's perfect because you, my friend, are really going to regret this. So and we are going to, yeah, now I'm going to, oh, my smoke has lasted. Because this guy's got a serious problems on his hands. I don't like what that battleship is doing, and I'm having problems targeting him. He will have fired his torpedoes at me. We've got one hit on him. And I'm going to try and turn out of here. I do not know how I survived that. Right. That was shocking. We're on our own. We're getting aircraft coming after us, and so now I need to find that Akazuki. We have the Nelson, and I am going to put SAP because even though my front turrets are coming round, my rear turrets, and he's got big battleships. That's what he's going to be wanting to torpedo. That front turret does turn pretty niftily. He's gone. And if I can just, oh yeah, that's nice. Don't lose concentration. Oh, I wish I had a speed boost on this. Okay, because we are going to get absolutely slammed. Right, as soon as I see that ship, as soon as I'm detected, pop off the smoke. And we let him have it while he can't see me. Those 8-inch guns are going to make short work of that. Okay, well that hurt, but obviously the smoke glitch has been a problem. We've got his battleship is aiming for our battleship. Where the hell's his aircraft carrier? Okay then. We may lose our carrier. Very, very likely to lose our carrier because our carrier is heading the wrong direction. If our carrier was pointing the opposite direction, we'd probably be okay. But that is definitely the wrong direction for that aircraft carrier to be facing. He's got no support. I have a Nelson, which is nice because a Nelson is a natural target for enemy aircraft because it's as scary as anything to be shot at by that thing. Although I have no idea. We've lost. I really expected the carrier to be the next ship to be lost. Right, we need to start making up some points because we have some real points deficits here. Oh, this is not good. Now I've got a problem because I've got AP loaded, which is fortunate. Alright, gas gone. That's a soft, juicy target, isn't it? I should be using my thatch. These torpedoes are just phenomenal. These are just a ton of fun, aren't they? So I'm going to try and turn in. I have a problem because somewhere out there is a destroyer and a Bismarck, neither of which is a lot of fun. Okay, I don't know what was going on there. That'll be the Bismarck, which doesn't worry me as much because his dispersion is so shocking. Okay, I mean, I'm just really shooting at him for points. We need to hold the cap. Oops, this is going to be a bit bad. Yep. And that's not really the ship I should have torpedoed. So how are the rest of the team doing? So overall, I probably should have stayed a little bit more at a distance. That's a pretty normal failing for me. I got a bit of overreach. Possibly should have just gone for the carrier, although the carrier's moved down the far end. We do have a lot of deficit of points, and that Nelson is facing a couple of fairly nasty ships, and probably the attention of that carrier. He's managed to avoid the torpedoes, but the game expires as a loss. Okay, so struggles against larger ships because, well, it's a big target and it's not particularly agile, and it's got a P, fairly low caliber at 8-inch AP, so struggles at a distance. Devastating against, with that SAP, absolutely devastating against lighter ships. So something different to learn and use. Nice looking ship. Domination games will probably be more of a struggle. Single cap games will definitely be a bigger struggle. Capture the base games will, of course, be where this ship will probably shine, as well as team skirmish. If this screen ever stops loading, we'll be able to see what the actual score was. If it ever stops loading. This, of course, may be the final screen of the video. And there we go. So let us have a look. 31,000 damage. So, yeah, we did struggle a little bit to cause damage. The 8-inch guns are pretty powerful, and with the likes of the Admiral Hipper, those 8-inch guns can certainly punch holes in things. But it doesn't quite have the same tankiness as the Admiral Hipper, and it's a little bit larger and a little less agile, even though the Admiral Hipper isn't great. No torpedo hits, but that's not surprising at tier 8. They are slow, long-range torpedoes, and I just sort of shot them off to chance my arm and punish anybody for being a bit stupid. I wasn't going to get close enough for likely hits. Yeah, so there's the verdict on the Amalfi. It is quite a capable ship. It'll be a bit like the Torpedo, in that it will require a little bit more patience to use properly. I do like the gun arrangement compared with the Tier 7 and the Tier 6, but obviously, yeah, the agility of these Italian ships just means you need to keep that little bit of extra distance. Anyway, I hope that that helped make your mind up about whether or not you think you'll like the Italian ships. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.